Okay, let's go ahead and get our carburetor ready to be assembled. We're going to unscrew the top part of the carburetor. That has your adjustment nut. We've got our slide return spring. Let's go ahead and get the slide out. Okay, in your slide, you've got a silver piece here. You have a groove cut in the slide here. You need to match the groove that's cut in the washer here with the groove in the slide assembly. I pushed the needle up so you can see, but go ahead and let it go down. Now what we've got to do is take the small end of the throttle cable. We're going to push that through the adjuster nut, through the top cap on the carburetor. We then take the spring, push the spring over the cable. Now you're going to compress it and pull the cable out all the way. The reason why I said you need to line up the groove in the washer with the throttle body is your cable is going to go on the bottom side of the carburetor slide. It goes through the groove in the throttle slide, and of course it goes through the groove in the washer. You then go ahead and let your spring go all the way down. Take the other end of the carburetor of the throttle cable, pull on it. Make sure you get all of the slack out of it. Now let's go ahead and take the throttle assembly. Remove the two screws. We're going to remove the top part. Now what we need to do is we need to fish the cable, the throttle cable, through the threaded hole here. Let's go ahead and push that through. And it's going to come up through it. Now what we need to do is screw this piece into the throttle housing. You want to unscrew the nut most of the way. Get it down to where it's just at the very bottom of the threads. Let's go ahead and screw it all the way in. Okay, here is where the throttle grip is going to be. You want this piece right here to be to be aimed towards the inside of the bike. In other words, here it would be aimed towards the outside of the bike, and you don't want that. You want to turn this to where it is going to be aimed towards the inside of the bike. Tighten the nut up, hand tight for right now. We'll tighten that up later. The throttle grip here has a hole in it. You're going to push the cable through the hole. Work it in. You've got the slot here. And you now have your throttle assembly working here. How this works, you twist the throttle and it pulls the carburetor slide up, which lets air into the carburetor. So let's go ahead and put this into the carburetor. You've got the slot here. The slot here in the throttle slide mates up with the pin here where the fuel inlet is. There's a pin here on the carburetor body, and you can see it on the inside. You have to align this up in order to get the carburetor slide to go all the way down. I'm looking inside the outlet of the carburetor there, and I can see that the slide is going all the way down. Go ahead and tighten up your cap. Here, now there's no sense in putting the top of the throttle assembly on here of your throttle grip, the housing on yet, because we still have to drill a hole in the handlebar. We've got this pin here that it will go into, so you've got to have a drill bit just a little bit larger than this pin here. I'm going to use a 3/16 drill bit, and I'm going to drill that into the handlebar, and then this pin here goes into it. that keeps your throttle grip, the whole throttle assembly, from rotating on the handlebar when you manipulate your throttle. So let's go ahead and get back to the bike. Okay, we are ready to go ahead and mount the carburetor. I'm going to take the throttle handle and I'm going to push it through the frame and let it hang over. You want to slide the carburetor on. Make sure the carburetor is pushed all the way as far as it can go that way. Otherwise, air will leak into your carburetor and it won't run good. So let's push it all the way up firmly. You want to have your carburetor straight up and down. You don't want to have it tilting to one side or the other. You want to be sure that you get your clamp mounted good and tight. You want your carburetor not to rotate or anything like that. Now, if your carburetor simply won't fit because of this piece here, you may need to get an aftermarket intake port that's angled. That way the port will angle off to one side and your carburetor can mount here. If there's simply not enough space, you'll need to get an angled intake port. I can provide you with one, or you can find them online. Okay, we are now ready to mount the throttle housing onto the handlebar. We already have it connected to the carburetor. You're going to push the assembly through the gap here underneath your top tube and your support tubes. You're going to come across the steering tube, slide the assembly onto the handlebar. You have the top piece removed. The top piece has this little pin here. We've got to drill a hole into the handlebar for the pin. What we're going to do is we're going to measure. We've got our screw holes here, and the pin is just a little bit behind the screw holes, about maybe 1/4 of an inch behind the screw holes. So you have your throttle grip pushed in all the way. We're going to take a punch, and I've got it lined up directly with the screw holes, and then we're going to go back about 1/4 of an inch, maybe just a little bit more. Double check my alignment. We're going to be fine there. I've got it on the top of the handlebar. Let's give it a little love tap here. Now let's go ahead and drill. Push the bottom of the housing up. Your cable, the ball of the cable goes into the white nylon piece. It goes through the slit here. When we return the throttle, when you open your throttle up, you're pulling in that direction, and it will return there. Go ahead, take your top piece. Fit it on. Make sure the pin goes into the hole. Here, now let's go ahead and put our screws in. Get both screws in before you start tightening it. You want to tighten them up evenly. Tighten one, then the other. I have the screws now where they are just snug. And what I want to do is I want to test the throttle, make sure it works. It's working fine. I've got a little bit of slack in the cable. Don't worry, we'll take that out. I'm going to tighten up the lock nut on the tube that the cable goes through that tightens into the housing. Okay, now then, I have some play in the cable. I'm going to pull the cable out all the way. Now I adjusted it. I had the nut all the way in. This here is an adjustment. I'm going to unscrew this to where I feel it get tight, get it snug against the cable. I'm pulling on the cable. There's no slack. You don't want to pull it too far, because you'll start to open up your throttle, and when you want to run your bike, it'll idle very high. We don't want that. Our lock nut here Get that tight against the other nut. You don't want to get it too tight. It's better to have it maybe a little loose and come back and tighten it just a little bit more if you see that it's not satisfactory. We've got good action on the throttle. I can hear the slide in the carburetor open. When I release, it springs back and shuts good. That means nothing is kinked. Everything's in good shape. We're going to take a tie wrap and put a tie wrap on the handlebar holding the cable and a tie wrap here. You want to make sure that your wheel, that your front wheel and your handlebars can turn throughout without binding your cable anywhere. But we're in good shape. Let's go ahead and go on.